prioritization of bicycling. And then Sam Adams came in, and so things kind of ramped back up because he and his staff, and Catherine and Tom Miller and others, were really into it. So that's the kind of commissioner style of government that we work under, is that things kind of come in cycles depending on the leadership and well, the Oregonian and some of the other factors here that make a big difference in how successful staff can be. So that's part of the story that kind of leads me to say I left the city in 1999 and I started consulting. So I opened up, kind of hung a shingle on my little house in Southeast Clinton, a little 800 square foot house. I had a little baby crawling around on the floor, and said bicycle consultant for hire. And the phone will be ringing, but the phone wasn't ringing because nobody had any clue. What is a bicycle consultant? What would this person do? Why would I hire you to do anything? And Portland was kind of one of the leaders in the country. So Portland didn't need to hire me because Portland already had staff, and so it was like, well, then who's going to hire? And so I had a business partner in California, and we started trying to create the market, trying to explain that bicycle transportation, just as we had done in Portland. Portland was a lot of those early years about this community conversation that yes, you can take us seriously. Yes, we're a toy. True. It's a good toy. It's fun. Yes, we're a sport. Good. Those are good things, but we can also be a serious form of transportation if we take it seriously. And so that was really the early work of my consulting, was working to just open the market to take bicycle transportation seriously. And so we started helping, to a lot of, in Oregon, I worked on a lot of these projects that are funded through ODOT's TGM program, which are a transportation plan, and there might be, of this $50,000 transportation plan, there would be like $5,000 to do a bicycle and pedestrian plan. And I did a ton of those, all around the state. I drove all around the state and just worked a million hours doing projects like that. And then I also ended up working on a national project that was called Rails with Trails Lessons Learned. And it was a big study of trails on active railway, on or adjacent to active railway corridors. So if you think about, actually I-205 bike path goes right next to light rail, right? That's it's no big deal. But there was a project to try to make something like that in Southern California, and the Federal Railroad Administration was lobbied by the train industry to stop it and to create a ban on trails next to active railway lines because of the danger, because the train could derail and hit people. And that's just true, it could happen. So. Yeah, so I ended up working on that project, and that kind of brought me into the national landscape of working on things nationwide. And the study was a 4-year study involving a lot of cities and communities, about 60 different trails that we researched. And so we started building the company all over the place. But yeah, at the same time then, after a few years, I ended up doing some TGM work back in Portland, like on the Division Streetscape plan that eventually has come to fruition. So some of those early conceptual things. My business partner, George, who had been at the Parks Bureau, and he had been the lead for the Parks Bureau on the Springwater Corridor, and then a lead on the initial design of the East Bank Esplanade. So he was, and if you guys think about those projects, they're incredible, right? What would we do without those places in Portland? And so those are some of the best trails in the whole country. So his expertise was then really sought in other parts of the country. And it still is, right, and he's working on some really cool projects. So we built the firm somewhat around the experience we had had in Portland, all the lessons we had learned, all the challenges, and then that's really what we've taken out. But then since then, Portland is one of many cities who are doing lots of great things, and so we're working in all kinds of really cool places on various kinds of projects, and actually not doing that much work in Portland, but working on a lot of things, or some work in Portland.
Well, because we have 4 women up front, I want to ask you to think about this, especially because Andy, you talked very specifically about how your feminism affected this, and I think about the leaders. The bridge project really came from Bev Stein, who's county chair in the BTA, went and asked for just the Hawthorne Bridge. He said, let's do it all. Then also Eric Katz is very supportive early on. Is there something about bicycling and women, or women and bicycling, that has made it so different than the typical transportation world?
Don't forget the late Judge Cooper. She died a week ago.
great. Commissioner Kafori was a great city council.
So, is there something special about women and bikes? Different fish and husbands?
Yes.
What it is?
Yes.
I just had one reflection in terms of my working with bikes as related to being a woman, which is that all my activities were with other people, and it was typically other women to get things done. And I think that's more of the women's style as we work together. I mean, it's sort of fun being on this panel. We're all clearly, you know, no one's the star and no one's shining out. But that was sort of my thinking about my working in bicycling. I was always with other people, and usually the women were getting together and figuring out stuff and doing.
Yeah, that's an interesting aspect. I was trying to think about that as well, and many of the women that I worked with at the time, and there weren't very many women, very few of us were ones that would beat our own drum. They were very much willing to take a back seat, or even though they maybe were doing a lot, they weren't looking for the attention in doing it, which isn't to say that men do that. That's not what I want to say. The women that I knew in the industry at the time, I think Andy's a great example. It's like, how often, I've never met her. And why is that? I mean, she's, to me, this like huge person in the industry. It's like when I was in the industry initially and managing the bike gallery in the 80s, I could count on, or I thought on one hand, the other women I knew in the country managing shops. And so here was Andy, who I really didn't know, because she's not out there going, look, what a great bike manager. No, she was just putting her nose down, doing the hard work. And I think, here's a long answer to this question too. This is a recent change, and there's a group now of young women in the community, and one of the things when they meet is to sit there and bang your own drum, praise yourself. I went to their meetings a couple of times, and basically when it became my turn to say what great things I was doing, all I could do was say, oh, I was really happy to see so-and-so get this done this week. And so after the meeting, one of the leaders came to me and says, you really need to learn to pat yourself on the back and show everybody what great things you've done. And I sort of like recoiled from that, but didn't understand why. And so looking back, I think a lot of the women in my generation and this generation, it was like we're not very good at being seeking a limelight. And I think it's just a part of how we've done things, but it doesn't mean that they're not there. It's sort of this very quiet, subtle way of being a female around bikes is just to do it because you love it. And then you happen to be a female doing it, so you have to be fairly good at doing it. In some circles, you had, for me, working in a bike shop, what gave me cred at the time was that I had very powerful cycling legs. And so the guys gave me credibility because of that. But as other women have now come in, I don't see that being the case. It's a matter of things slowly changing so that like a women's style is anything now. It can be someone who beats their own drum, or it can be someone that doesn't seek the limelight. And I think, even folks that were in the public eye at the time, some of those folks I think of just being there doing the hard work. And Catherine Charlot is one of those people to me. I think she, when she was leading the BTA, was really doing a tremendous amount of incredible work, very cooperatively. And that, to me, I guess, is sort of a female style, or known as female style.
I don't remember, who's the co-owner of Broadway Bike? I touched her back wheel, and she was so forgiving. When I broke my right crank and did a forward header, she got to get me a Suzuki Mighty Tour crank match. I was going over Sully Island and touched her back wheel, and she kept her cool.
Yeah, I remember that was. Rex, I think I would have three kind of contradictory answers to you. One is personal. Because I came to cycling kind of in that time in my life when I also sort of became myself. It's inextricably linked, and I can't say the cause and effect exactly, but I do know that, so I've never owned a car, and like I said, I was like really risk averse and not very active, and so, you know, bicycling to me was just this, like the skies opened, and all of a sudden, I had independence, I had mobility, I could go far. I started to see, you know, my body as like a tool and be like grateful and feel strong. So, and I recall too, so before I was just like waiting for the TriMet bus, the once an hour 39 up to Wilson Park. And feeling really vulnerable, right? Like a young, admittedly insecure 18-year-old waiting for a long time at a bus stop in the dark and the rain. That did not feel nearly as safe as when I started biking, and I was just like, nobody's gonna mess with me. So for me personally, it has been inextricably linked with confidence and mobility and you know, getting what I want. And then the second part I would answer is related to Portland. I don't know that this can be, that we can give someone credit for this, but many of our institutions have been run by women or very friendly to women. So I told you I walked into Selwood Cycle my first day. They are a shop that is very good to newbies of all types. But they never ever, even when I asked them the most stupid questions, they never made me feel stupid over many years. They were kind and generous with their time. And that might not have been the case in another city or even another shop. And also, you know, I just happened to have been at PTA with, just listed off who I was with, and I've always worked for powerful, great women, whether Catherine or Mia, and I haven't perceived, you know, boundaries. If anything, I've had people pushing me and encouraging me and telling me to go farther than maybe I want to. That said, if you look at the numbers, the professional bicycle advocacy world is pathetic when it comes to diversity in every aspect. You know, they're all pretty much like wealthy, educated white men. So I don't think I would say that bicycling as a professional movement does a great job of like, you know, attracting and retaining women or people of color or working class people, old people.
Yeah. And I would say, you trigger something. I had one visual that I brought today, and if you talk about, you know, the old white guys. Sorry, old white guys.
We do love it. We really do.
But I got this is a little brochure that I got from the Independent Bike Dealers Association about their upcoming summit. You know, the bike industry is in trouble. The numbers don't lie. But all the leaders of the industry are coming together, and what you see in this picture, I was just like, this is not Portland. It's a bunch of old, middle-aged white guys standing together, talking together, and they're talking about why this industry is suffering. And it's so the reason I was bringing this visual today is because it's exactly why Portland to me hasn't suffered. Is what you're talking about, people that pushed me and gave me opportunities when I didn't even know they existed. And they were many times men. So it's not just women here in the city that have made Portland great for me and what I do. I walked into a bike shop in 1989 because the shop I'd been working at was basically circling the drain. It was going out of business. And so I was looking at what my options were, walked in because some of my friends said, oh, you should interview there. And I went in for a lead salesperson job. And when I got the call the next day, we want to hire you, you'll be our new manager. No one was more surprised than I was, but those were men that had been in the industry recognizing that there were women that could be leaders even with only 2.5 years of bike industry experience. So it's, you know, the part about the feminism, and I'm like, with you, I discovered myself through coming up through the shops, coming up through bicycling. And what Jessica was saying about discovering herself is exactly what kept me working in the industry, was time and time again, seeing my customers connect with their bicycles. And largely it was women customers that I saw this happen to and saw the transformative nature of it. For women, as well as men, there were many men over the years that I've seen that really dramatically affect as well. It was the women that kept me there. And hearing you describe that, you know, this almost makes me cry because it's like, yes, this is why we do this. This is why we've gone to what Andy remembered. You know, it's like back when sand. Of course you ride your bike down sand first, right? So anyway, that was one.
That's not other questions.
Well, so saying that, there's still more men in this room than women. And you, at most of the bicycle advisory committee meetings I've been to, there's more men, white men than women. So based on what you were just saying too, how do you think the industry, both what you're doing and then the city, to get more women and minorities riding, and especially what you were saying, Jessica, to have that feeling of independence? I think there's still a lot of women who think that you have to be an athlete or you have to do this. So I'd like you to speak to that. Right, well, and I think it also, those of you who became parents, how that's changed your thinking of bicycling and how that can affect getting more women and more minorities.
I mean, I think, as you know, Courtney, the spectrum of the notion that the interested but concerned are the market, and that all of the research that the city has done, all the research that Jessica has done, all of our studies in every other city we've done, they all say the same thing, that it's a combination of the infrastructure has to be better. It has to be and I think in the initial years we were fighting so hard just to get a line. Just a line, but it's just a line. And that's the basic problem, is it's just a line. And a skinny little line on Southeast 26 does not provide you much comfort as a woman with children.
The 4 foot.
The 4 foot bike lane. I have 3 children now, and I have a teenager, and well, here's the good news, though, I would say, is that there is generational change happening. And when we first started, I mean, because you've been in the city since the 90s too, since the mid-90s, right? So I mean, back then it was a very, very small. So we've increased the proportion. So we're making progress, right?
Does your husband have a good maternal instinct?
So,
I was just going to say that the teenagers now, because Safe Routes to School started in the mid-zeros, and so I've seen, because my kid was a kindergartner then, that my oldest is now a junior in high school, and tons of kids ride to Cleveland High School. It's ringed by bikes, but except for his bike got stolen, and now he's really concerned about riding because his bike, because so many kids have had their bikes stolen. But they take the bus because they have the transit passes. So there's a whole literacy around transportation that I think we need a whole generation. We're not quite there in having a whole generation have a different experience around bicycle transportation. And I think particularly for the women and those that are moms, that it does create a very different landscape, that we have to change the infrastructure, we have to change through the programs and the education aspects, and through modeling and through smart trips and Sunny Berkeley's and all those things. And I think we're making a lot of progress, but I agree with you, we still have a long way to go.
And those of you who might not know, I think the recent research that especially People for Bikes has been doing or presenting around increased protection from motor vehicle traffic, and how compelling that is, both in terms of if you build it, the actual numbers, raw numbers, but including like percentage of women who will use it. And then they did this really extensive national phone survey about what would help you feel more comfortable. I mean, down to like the material of the separator. And it's, at this point, it is clear that a connected network that goes from everywhere to everywhere and provides maximum separation from motor vehicle traffic and places to park once you get there is part of the answer. It's not the whole answer, but if you don't have, it's like a necessary but not sufficient condition. So that's where Portland, having started a little bit earlier and having had some of these spurts of really energetic, building and connecting, Jeff's wonderful, Missing Links program. It's just a little bit of money, but it makes a big difference. I think that's one of the reasons that we have more women riding here than in many other cities. And I bet you will see that in the cities that are doing a great job of that, like Indianapolis, I bet you will see the numbers reflect that.
But I think Safe Routes to School is really a big part of the story, because when Abernathy, where my kids went, the older kids, it's the kindergarten parents that when they embrace, they take it all the way through, and the kindergarten parents are ferocious because they're little chickies, they're just going to school, so it's the most impressionist time, right? And so if they embrace it and then they keep it all the way through, they influence not just their kids, but themselves and their friends and the school community and the neighborhood around the school and everybody that drives near the school. And it's a transformational thing that I think has borne itself out here, that it's really what makes it flash. So that's my opinion. You know as much as anybody.
I
right, we're
very
done.
reluctantly have to note that we've gotten to 1 o'clock. I'm deeply honored that you all made
this team up.